The United States has been building its military presence in the Caribbean in what it says is a campaign against drug traffickers. Well, this weekend, the Pentagon announced that it would deploy an aircraft carrier group to the Caribbean as part of its fight on what it calls narco terrorism. Well, the U.S. has conducted 10 airstrikes on suspected drug trafficking vessels in the area in the past month.
Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has since accused the US of fabricating a new war. But US President Donald Trump says he's committed to blocking drugs from entering the US.
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay?
And just following up on that, the Trump administration has started designating Latin American cartels as, quote, foreign terrorist organizations. But then legal experts say that that doesn't justify the use of military force. Well, earlier I spoke with Sarah Yager. She's the Washington director at Human Rights Watch, and she says that the strikes amount to extrajudicial killings.
So there is no conflict, no war happening in the Caribbean. The people on these boats are not combatants. And regardless of what they were doing, whether they were drug smugglers or fishermen, the international law says you cannot kill anybody you want, wherever you want, for whatever reason you want. And that is exactly what President Trump is doing. So these are unlawful, and they amount to extrajudicial killings.
But at the same time, the Trump administration maintains that they were targeting, and I'm going to quote again, in their words, narco terrorists. And this is in the name of national security. This is according to Washington. Now, the strikes were carried out in international waters. So what are the international laws that's been contravened here?
Sure. Well, narco terrorist is not a thing. It is not a legal term. It is not a legal term under international law, under U.S. law. So this is a made-up word for a made-up situation. That is not to say that drug smuggling is not a problem. It is not to say that the opioid crisis in the United States is not a problem. They are. This is not the way to get at it. The international laws that are being violated here are called international human rights law. That means that anyone that you kill outside of armed conflict, unless it is in self-defense, that's murder. So these are extrajudicial killings.
Now, Human Rights Watch also notes that the strikes have taken place in the context of the Trump administration's dismantling of internal legal oversight within the U.S. military. That's according to Human Rights Watch. What implications does this then have?
Sure. Well, these strikes are illegal no matter how you look at it. However, at the same time, Secretary of Defense Hegseth has been saying that the U.S. military will become more lethal. He has gotten rid of many of the senior judge advocates. Those are the military lawyers who look at operations and say, this is legal, this is not legal. And has gotten rid of many of the guardrails that the professional U.S. military has used in order to exercise restraint. So what we have is an illegal operation with a military that is focused on lethality. This is very concerning.
That being the case, if Washington continues its operations in the Caribbean, what sort of global implications could that have, you know, in terms of the U.S. military being used in other policing issues?
Well, the U.S. military is already being used in law enforcement across the United States in U.S. cities. So as it becomes a more, quote unquote, lethal force, as the guardrails of restraint are taken away, it is likely to be deployed in our own streets. So that is very concerning. I think for the world's nations, this is concerning because it is an unraveling of the international laws that keep us all safe. In Australia, international human rights law keeps people safe. It keeps the country safe. You cannot invade. You cannot just kill people when you want to kill people. So these are really important laws. And I really hope that the rest of the world world's nations, especially the democracies, will say something about this and stand up for the rule of law.
Sarah Yager, Washington Director at the Human Rights Watch, we thank you so much for sharing your insight with us.
Thank you.